This is going to be a fantastic evening. We are talking with Lisa Snow Lady. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, everybody.
And this is a presentation titled Life is a Garden. And we are about to dive in, but first I want to make sure that you know that we are a Washington State nonprofit organization, and we acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Squaxin, Nisqually, and all Coast Salish peoples. I'm joining from Seattle on the traditional land of the Duwamish people, whom I honor, and with deep gratitude, I appreciate their stewardship of this land and recognize that I am merely inhabiting momentarily, and we all move gently or forcibly, maybe like a flower, maybe like gardens. Maybe this inspiration will continue, and this reverie of the land is something that we're about to really dive into. Tonight's presentation with Lisa Snow Lady is part of our Community Calls series. And Lisa is a SOLA Awardee from 2021, and she works in acrylics and collage. We'll find out a lot more about Lisa, but all of our SOLA awardees it's a peer review process that their peers have selected them to be a SOLA awardee. And we are about to announce 5 more awardees. I can't say anything other than that, but I'm so excited. So I want you to tune in on the 26th. What's that, Thursday this week? Artist Trust makes the big announcement, and then we follow up. And we're so proud to be able to support 5 more women at another $25,000 in unrestricted cash grants. So stay tuned for that later this week. But for now, I think we should dive in. Lisa, are you ready?
All right. Well, I guess so. We'll just
Do
see
it.
how this goes.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking me to do this, Nicole. I feel
Oh,
honored.
thank you so much for doing it. It's a pleasure. I'm just excited. This beautiful image to start with. Let's just stay here for a while. The
Okay.
work is so lovely.
Well, I titled this Life is a Garden, and I'm wondering if people might wonder, why didn't she say life in a garden? But I feel like life for me is the garden is a metaphor for life. Um, I have this book. I can show it to you later, but I have this book called Hawaii is a Garden, and that book always inspired me. I love Hawaii, but just the idea that we're surrounded by a garden. We live in a garden, and a garden is a metaphor for life. I just going through the seasons in the garden, spring, the newness of spring, and summer, the relaxation of summer, and fall with, things kind of feeling a little melancholy. And then winter, sort of the bare bones of winter, and the just trying to, relax, things kind of die back a little or go dormant. So there's just so much there, I think, in the seasons. And when you think about the gardens surrounding you and how you feel in them, also the scents, the sounds, it's very tactile. So all your senses are engaged in the garden.
Love it.
This image here, it's a zinnia garden. I really love incorporating architecture into my work, and you'll see that more. So I love the organic against the geometric. I think I started to become interested in architecture. I have a degree in art history, and also my trip to Europe influenced my interest in architecture. So putting the architecture against the organic, I think just really, I love those two components. This is a pea patch actually that I visit, and just love the vibrant colors in the summer.
Really great. I love the way you use the sense of space. It's like the architecture is not exactly architecture. It sort of is a frame for all of the beauty that you're representing in the flowers.
Yeah, just peeking through to it.
Yeah. Shall we move to the next slide or anything else? Great.
Yeah, so I wanted to throw this in here because for me this kind of garden just really speaks to me because I'm an urbanite. I love the urban garden. This is actually a friend of mine's garden. And I have spent a fair amount of time there, but this is winter and I really love being in the Northwest because I grew up in the Northwest and there's always something blooming here. Um, all seasonally, even in December, you can find roses. This is a camellia bush. I think it's probably very early winter. So you're seeing two different camellia bushes, and then the idea of the messiness too. So you see the blooms and then you see them drop. And so you just see that cycle of life there. And then, there's architecture in the background too, which sort of says urban. So that's that's part of what I feel, I feel the garden is to me.
These are so beautiful in the middle of winter when you have all the sticky trees around. I always think we are doomed when I see these because I think, oh no, they're blooming in the winter, but they're supposed to. Is that right?
Yeah, well, this one here is midwinter. So this is the Camellia japonica, which you see in the midwinter that kind of takes you into spring. But there's also a camellia that does bloom in deep winter. So it'll start in October. And it's a little bit different kind of variety, but it'll start September, October and bloom into, December. So you'll probably see these camellias blooming all year round.
So good to know. Thank you. Is there,
Yeah.
yes, here we go.
Yeah, well, I also am inspired by just any kind of garden. So what you have here on the left is my trip to Turkey took me through a lot of different places, and this is just a back alley that I was exploring. And someone just set up a few pots on a window, and it's just just the blues and the greens, and it just felt, cool and quaint, and it was just fun to stumble across, someone making something out of a very small area. And then the one on the right is San Miguel de Allende, where it's in Mexico, central Mexico, where I spent some time sort of on an artist retreat. And I went to some botanical gardens there. And so I just noticed this little vignette of these succulents sitting in these terracotta pots. And I loved the color coordination of them. I'm just, they're their own little contained garden.
I love how you're using these tertiary colors, the so close together. Really
Yeah,
beautiful.
very harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a studio shot. Joan will recognize this. I have been with Ballard Works for about 20 years since the inception of it. Although I've maintained different studios in the building off and on. What the studio I have right now is actually pretty small, and I share with someone, but I've managed to create some large work. This is a series of smaller works, and this is what I'm working on now for my next show. So it's about white flower gardens. And I was thinking about the moon garden, and that's a garden that reflects the moonlight, especially in summer, and also attracts the night pollinators.
I love this so much. What sizes are these?
So these are 10 by 10s.
Mm-hmm.
I added more to them. But I have
These,
some pretty large ones too, but I'm having fun with these small ones. And these are actually collage and mixed media.
they're lovely. And your show is going to be,
So the show with these is September at Harris Harvey Gallery. So
okay.
it'll be first Thursday will be the opening.
We can mark our calendars now.
Mm. And those were some of the supplies that I was on the table.
Who's this young
So,
lady?
so backing up, this is
Mhm.
me at 3, I think, 3 or 4. I'm in my mother's garden there. Those are marigolds around. So I guess I was really influenced by color back then, even, how I wanted to dress. My mother had a great influence on me. She was a wonderful gardener. As I know, we moved into a house later from this particular house that you're seeing all those colorful flowers, and she was more of a designer. She designed the area, she landscaped the area around her house. So there was a huge house and not much around, but she did great with it, and it was very sustainable. So I was really influenced by her sense of design, and but not so much her sense of gardening back then. She would send me out with a bag and say, I want you to fill this bag up with weeds. And like I'd come back after an hour and she'd say, you can't possibly be done. And I thought, this is kind of, like pointless. Why am I doing this weeding if they're just going to grow back? So I put my garden aspirations to bed at that point. Yeah.
No weeding for 3-year-old
Yeah,
Lisa.
not weeding for, well, I think at that time I was probably maybe 12, but yeah, didn't do much for me. One of my degrees is art history. I have a degree in general art and painting and art history. I loved the art history program. I took it at the UW. And so I was really influenced by a lot of different artists all through the different eras of history. But I particularly fell in love with the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. The painting on the left is by Bonnard. He was a Post-Impressionist, or actually he was a Nobby, it's called Nobby's artist, but he was kind of in line with the Post-Impressionists. And what I really like about him is his sense of color. He was French, a French impressionist, and he just made his colors sing. And here we have his indoor, so he has a lot of indoor outdoor scenes, but this is an outdoor scene sitting under a canopy, this table with the sunlight in the distance. So I love that sort of juxtaposition of the shade and the sun. And that's always stuck with me. I've had the opportunity to see his work in person, and they sing so much better in person than they do in reproductions.
They all do, don't they? Yeah, I
Mhm.
can see the influence strongly in your work. Yeah, I love it. And is that a Van Gogh?
Yes, so I threw in this Van Gogh because I didn't really care for Van Gogh originally. I have spent some time in Holland, and I did see the Van Gogh Museum. But it wasn't until I started really looking at him when I started teaching art, or started teaching, I teach sketching, and I'll cover that later, but I think he's just experimenting with color. I think his palettes are all, he did so many, and I think they were just all, playing around with it, the complementary colors and the split complementaries. And so he must have studied color theory, but I just really loved his colors. And what I like about this is that this sunflower isn't at its prime.
Mhm.
It's it's kind of, maybe he's cut it off, it's withering, it's been at the end of its life. And so I just really liked that he showed, life as it was.
Mm, he definitely did. He lived life as it was too.
Mhm.
Ooh.
So when had been a graphic designer when I got out of school, I did that for about 20 years as a career, and I freelanced quite a bit in graphic design, but I found my perfect job in the end, which was working 3 days a week and having 2 days off to do my artwork. But I didn't have a place to do it. So I signed up for classes at Pratt. I took monotype at Pratt, and I studied with Ava Isaacson. I took these classes for probably, I don't know, maybe 3 years. And this is an early monotype. Um, I fell in love with the printmaking process. I hadn't really studied it before, but just that element of surprise and making, multiples or varying them a little bit. So this is an early one. It's pretty small, but they were, when I did botanicals, when I did monotypes, they were all pretty much botanicals.
Hmm. Beautiful.
And this is a little bit later. This one's obviously a little more complex. I had studied botanical illustration in the midst of doing my monotypes. So I really learned how plants, leaves, flowers are put together. In that class, we had to use magnifying glass. It was very precise. Actually really pulling apart the plants and really looking at them. And I decided that, that wasn't really what I wanted to do as a career, but it really helped me as as I worked with that, this motif, to kind of know it better, really observe it. So I incorporated some of those drawings into this. This is a mixed media collage. So I have a lot of different kinds of papers, even some metallics in there.
I love those metallics, and of course, looking at it in person would be so much better than online. What dimensions are this piece? Do you know off the top of your head?
This one, it's a triptych.
Mhm.
So I think was maybe 320. What is the standard size? 20 by 30. So I think it was
Mhm.
three of those.
Oh, it's very big.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I cut a stamp actually for each one of those petals of the hydrangeas. So it's like, stamped with acrylic paint.
Did you say each one of those petals of the hydrangeas is a cut
Yeah,
stamp?
yeah. Well, it's the same stamp. It's just turned in different directions. With
Oh, not like a stamp at the post office, but you made a stamp.
right.
I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
I love this idea of the collage too. So that opens it up. You've got these prints in here. There's metallic papers. It looks like some writing of different kinds, maybe calendars. But then you have this cohesion. Takes me back to the camellia plant in the winter. There's this beauty of the chaos and definitely the beauty in here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What's next?
So when I moved into my current house, I've been here now 20 years, there was no landscaping around the house. And so I knew I wanted to put in a garden. I started putting in some things, and it really, I felt like it was trial and error. But I was enjoying doing the research about what kind of plants go where, in what, areas would takes more sun, more shade. So that led me to pursue a degree in ornamental horticulture. I went to Edmonds College, and my idea was to get a degree in landscape design. And I took most of the landscape design classes when I was there. It took me 4 years to go through the program. and I have a degree in ornamental horticulture. This here is a plan, and I loved doing these plans. This is hand drawn, and they're large, but they get scaled down, and then they make blueprints out of them. This here's assignment was for a fictitious garden. So this is an ancient garden from the book of Song of Solomon from the Bible. But what I did, because that's in the Mediterranean climate, I used the plants from that Mediterranean area that we have in our area here that can grow here. So that whole list, it says plant schedule. That whole list there includes all those plants. And we had to use in that course, we had to memorize about maybe 600 of the different botanical names of plants and their genus and species, which I've forgotten a lot. But I learned so much. And as a result of that, my garden just looks so much better. I didn't do a whole lot with that degree when I finished. I did some container designs, which was sort of a goal of mine too. Plantings for people's decks, and to do some small landscapes around people's yards. I found that working as a landscape designer would be a full-time job, and working as a painter is a full-time job. So I couldn't handle them both. So, but I have the knowledge now that I got out of that program. And like I said, as my gardens improved a lot from having gone through that program.
It just shows your passion for gardens. This continues to go on and on and on. Why are you
Yeah,
passionate
it
about gardens?
it's a constant theme of mine. I don't know, I've studied other, I did a lot of life drawing and I like the still life. I just feel like I can't imagine a world without vegetation, and it just it's the colors and the textures and shape. And there's just they're healthy. It's healthy for everyone to be in nature. And I think everyone does appreciate nature, even if they're not, really aware of it. That it will affect you just being out there, just getting your hands dirty in it, noticing things. The changing of, the seasons, and notice how, the small things out there and the larger views too. But
It's so nice to be
that's
connected.
right.
So nice to be connected to those things and be connected to nature. Speaking of connected to nature, I believe that was your garden that we were looking at. Is that correct?
So that was my garden. My garden is, like a painting, gardens are always in a state of flux. And so that was one stage of my garden. That was about 10 years ago when I did those. And this article here this is an article that was from the Seattle Times. So my garden was written up. And I was really happy about that because I went from nothing to being honored. I knew Valerie Easton, who was the Times garden writer, and I sent her kind of a mock-up idea of what I envisioned this article to be. And I thought it would be more like I designed this garden on a shoestring because I didn't have money as an artist. And she turned it into garden art and an artist garden. And I think she did a beautiful job with the article. So here's a spread of it. And my garden looks even different from that now because it's changed so much.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think every artist goes through a period where they just feel like they maybe need to make some money in another way. And I couldn't figure out how I would do that. I had quit graphic design and knew I wasn't going to go back. So someone encouraged me to start teaching. And I had a friend who was teaching at the Volunteer Park Conservatory. And I thought maybe I'll try that. I had never taught before, but I had loved to sketch. And so I started teaching this class in the Volunteer Park Conservatory, and it was great because we started out in the cottage and we'd do some warm-up exercises, and then we'd go into all the different rooms of the conservatory. And it's a great place, especially in winter, because of course it's all enclosed and you have all these tropicals all around you. So we went into each week, there were 6 weeks, we went into all the different areas of the conservatory. So these are a couple of my a few of my students sketching.
I love that place. So are you still doing that?
I'm not currently teaching there.
Mhm.
During COVID, I think I had my last class there. Everything closed down, but I am still teaching at the Center for Urban Horticulture, which I think will come up in a couple slides.
Okay, great.
So these here are a couple of demos that I did for my class. You know, I love the cactus room. So in the conservatory. So that's the left image. And then the other two are from different places in the conservatory. So they were kind of just quick studies on, you know, showing the students how to capture what was around them. And here's the shot of the Center for Urban Horticulture, which is through the UW Botanic Gardens. In the summer, I like to go outside because they have these beautiful borders with perennials blooming. This is a shot, though, of the winter. The gardener bring in, you know, cuttings from the garden. These are berries. And we'd sit at this table, and this was before COVID. So we all got to sit together. Um, and it was a small kind of intimate setting. And on the right is a demo that I did for the class of these berries. And I love to travel and sketch. This is Squim. So I'm sitting in the lavender garden during the festival, I believe. And I just love to bring my sketchbooks with me and use my pen and my paints. So the one on the right is a sketch from Squim. And then this is the Vuillard Gardens. So I have about 30 sketchbooks filled up with all my travel sketching. So this one is from the gardens in Victoria. And I just love to, you know, make my way around the garden, just take down what I see, make maybe little vignettes like on the right. So seeing how I can fit things into my watercolor book.
Now you traveled, oh, you're about to talk about it, I think.
Yeah,
Let me let you go. Yeah.
well, mine was always have this dream to take students with me traveling and to travel overseas. And in 2019, I had the opportunity to do this with the Winslow Arts Center. They're based in Bainbridge. That's Martha Jordan. She's the owner and director of the Winslow Arts Center. And we got together a group of students who wanted to learn travel sketching. So we were in Trevi, which is a medieval hill town, which was a really wonderful place to sketch because you could just walk everywhere and see something really interesting to sketch. This is just a scene of me talking to one of the students. There weren't a ton of gardens there because, you know, those hill towns are just built like, you know, mostly stone. The architecture was amazing, but we found little places to, you know, that little pockets of gardens. The one on the right is called the Villa Fabri. and it had these wonderful gaura those flowers on the that you see at the bottom. They're called angels or butterfly wand. But gaura is the scientific name. Sometimes I can only remember the scientific name of the plants, but it was a beautiful spot for painting the gardens. So I went there often to do that.
Did you say this was Italy?
This is Italy, Trevi in Italy. It's about 3 hours from Rome.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah.
And are you still doing those, or do you have plans to do them again?
I don't have a plan to go with with as an art school, but I do wherever I go, I do bring my paints. I'm going to Mexico in the fall, so I'll bring my paints for a couple weeks and do some sketching by myself.
Yeah,
Someday I'll take students.
perfect.
Yeah, so when I came back from Italy, COVID hit shortly after coming back in 2000. I came back in late 2019, and I wanted to turn my sketches and my photos into a series of collages based on Italy. So these are those gardens that I mentioned, the Villa Fabri gardens. This is a collage. It's not too big. It's maybe 15 by 17. So it's one of them. So I loved, the cypress and the way the light hit, and also just using different textures and pieces of cut and torn paper. So it was COVID, and I know it was hard on a lot of people, but I honestly really enjoyed just sitting at my dining room table making these Italian collages and just bringing back memories of Italy because I hadn't been there too long before that. And the next one this is the Borghese Gardens. So this is from that same series. I wanted to show my reference on the right. So just simplifying, the photo with shapes. That's one thing I really love about collage is it helps me just really pare down and think about, basic shapes that maybe can inform my paintings. But it also is fun to incorporate some text in and some pattern.
The materials that you like to use, is this gonna give us a little insight into that?
So these are some of my materials. So sometimes I'll use the glue stick. It's pretty easy to, just if you're on the go, it's really easy to just grab and use. If I'm at home or in my studio, I'll use the gel medium. And you can see, it doesn't take much, a gel medium brush, water, rinse your brush out. Some papers, the papers are either handmade. Some of those I made myself by printing on them. Some are bought, just whatever I have around, I'll use. In the back are, those flowers are just my inspiration. Must have been winter, so what I had blooming in my either garden or something that started to bloom for me inside.
Now you use acrylic and you're blending collage with your acrylic, is that right?
Well, it just depends, the series that I showed you of my Italian collages, those were strictly paper. So sometimes I'll just use the paper. It's when I'm at home, actually, I'll just use paper because sitting at my dining room table can be, pretty messy. So in my studio, I'll use either, acrylic, just acrylic paint, or a mixture of acrylic paint maybe as a base and then put the paper on in layers.
Is there something specific that you really like about collage, or have you explained that to us?
Yeah, I just really like the playfulness of it. If you have some text or some letters that you received, you can put those in. I did this, I did this commission, and sometimes I don't really love doing commissions, but I loved doing this one. It wasn't botanical, but it was of somebody's interior, and he gave me a bunch of his special papers. He was a musician, so it had like people playing instruments in that collage. But he gave me some script and some musical pieces and just special things for me to put into his piece. So it made it really personal.
That's beautiful. I was wondering about that. It seems like you have your own special papers that you've made. If there are specific text, I've seen some text and always interested in what is really underneath the surface of the things. And there's so much possibility that you could
Mhm.
have with collage.
Yeah, it's a playful medium and it
Yeah.
helps me loosen up a bit.
Yeah.
And also, I know when I'm done making a collage, and I don't always know that when I'm making a painting. I feel like I just keep going over my paintings, but I have a good idea
Interesting.
when it's finished with collage. So here's a couple of finished pieces. The one on the left is it's it's from the winter berries and the winter blooming. Well, actually, some of those are bought things, but I have put some camellias in there as a winter blooming flowers. But so I just really liked putting a combination of different kinds of berries and flowers, and and I think there might be some music in there. I don't know, just some different printed papers. And then the one on the right does have music. My husband sings in a choir, so I get a lot of discarded music uh, from him to use. So
I
that's
am
obviously summer.
I love your work so much. It's just so easy to just look at it, to be with it. And I feel something so spiritual when I look at your work. And I know from your SOLA Awardee spotlight video that there's a strong you have a strong spirituality, and I'm wondering if how do you fit your faith into your art practice? I mean, it seems I see it, but what does that mean for you?
Well, that's a good question because I don't really paint overtly Christian symbols. Some do and they do a great job with it, but I feel like God is he's the creator of all, and so all of life is sacred. Um, so I don't compartmentalize. I just say that, everything around us is a gift from God. And
Mm.
so I honor God with my talent, and um, feel like it doesn't matter what I'm painting. There's not a line for me between the sacred and the ordinary. I think the ordinary can be sacred. And one person who influenced me a lot in that was Madeleine L'Engle. I don't know if you know her writings, but she wrote some fiction. Like A Wrinkle in Time was one of her more famous ones, but she
Which
wrote
one
a
was
lot
that?
of nonfiction. Sorry.
Which one was that?
Oh, A Wrinkle in Time. I don't know
Yes,
you
yes, yes.
know
Mhm.
that, but she wrote a lot of nonfiction on faith and art, and so that really influenced me about how
Mm.
the beauty, just to show the beauty, just to show the wonder,
Yeah.
even the decay, just everything there is important.
Mm. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing.
Mm. Yeah, so here's another collage. This, I don't know if you will recognize this from the very first shot of the zinnias. Sometimes I'll repeat my paintings with collage. So this one, I just took that same motif of the pea patch and tried it out with different patterns and papers. It was fun to come up, to do a different version of it, but with paper. I think it might have a little paint in it, but it is mostly paper is cut and torn.
Wow. That's all I have. No words. I'm speechless. Just wow.
Mm, not super big.
Yeah.
So that aspect of light and shadow, like I mentioned, Bonnard, and the way he treats that has always, since I started painting, I guess, seriously, that's been with me a lot. That sense of inside outside. So here I'm looking out the window, or the windows in the background, and then the flowers, cut and brought inside. And so the shadows, I think really, those shapes of shadows are important to me, carved out, shapes. Um, and that, working in shapes too. I was mentioning about the collage influencing me and my working with, the big shapes. So that's what's coming through here, and some of those areas and some of those negative spaces. I think if I had my pointer, I would point to them, but maybe it's obvious between the flowers. Those little areas are really, they hold the positive areas together. So I feel like they're really important.
I could look at this forever. It's so beautiful.
Mm.
Um, I love what you do with the negative space, but what I really love about this piece is all of the detail that you have included in the glass. Like you can
Mm.
see the whole world in that
Mm.
glass, and you've chosen
Wow.
just there's the tree, there's a house. You can't see it in the window, but you've and then and of course the shadow has so much detail compared to some of the other things, the space that you've included. But I really love the interior of that glass. You've just got the whole world in there. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is this a painting or is this a collage?
It is a painting. Yeah,
Okay.
it's acrylic painting.
I can't
Mhm.
tell online, so
Oh.
it's good to know. Really
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything else about this one?
Yeah, no, I'll just go on to these. So these are acrylic paintings. The one on the left is called Palm Garden. Both of these, and the one on the right is Lavender Garden or something like that. I don't remember, but both of these are influenced by my neighborhood walks. I live in Ballard. It's very walkable. I like to just walk around, especially either in the morning or the late afternoon when the light is low. And just, see the shapes of the shadows. That's what really captivates me a lot. So again, it's the organic with the built environment, that create a backdrop for the drama of the shadows. The one on the left is 30 by 30, and the one on the right is small. It's about 10 by 10. And that one on the left, I've painted so many times. That house, I just love palms. I feel like I should live in California or something. I love a cool palette. I love the palms. And that house it's not very far from where I live, but I painted it, and I painted it several times as I've noticed it in different light and different angles.
And do you start with a photograph or you're just sketching there on the street or?
For these, I've used photographs.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I don't always include architecture, although I feel like I'm pretty much more successful with it. But these are a couple that I felt came together without it. So the one on the left is Reflecting Pool, and then the one on the right is called Glade, and they're about 36 by 30. So they're still gardens. They're woodsy gardens, woodland gardens. And I like to look at things from different vantage points. So this is the forest floor that I think a lot of people disregard when they're walking by. But I just love to see the tapestry of what's happening on the ground, all the different ground covers. And so this was from a garden that is in the Capitol Hill area. And I just noticed, all these different things weaving in themselves together. And so I just, felt like it would make a good motif. So pushing the colors a bit, from green to blue or blue-green to blue. It's fun to play around with those, the color that way.
All those greens. I mean, you just work with colors so well.
Greens are hard, I think.
It doesn't look hard the way you you make it look easy.
Thank you. So this is a series that is shot from a series I did of the native plants of the Pacific Northwest. I've been thinking about them lately as we move into our climate change and our what we're dealing with now, and just maybe losing some of our pollinators and our biodiversity. So I did this series of native plants that went to the Center for Urban Horticulture's gallery. And that was in 2023. It was the, they had a little gallery there. So I'd known about it for a couple years, but it was fun to work on this. And in the end, I decided to put the botanical names. So not in every one because it wouldn't fit on every one, but on the left, Mahonia repans, that's the Oregon grape, the low Oregon grape. And it was so much fun to work on these because I didn't know where they were going to go at first. I just was doing them for myself for fun. And then I got asked to do the show. So I did a lot of research for these too. There were about maybe 16 pieces. And so I did the research on, you can see there, this blanket flower, or, the one on the right, the history of it, how the indigenous people might have used it, what, the pollinators, that it attracts and why it's important. And the next one has a couple of them as well. So here's the Western sword fern on the left, Polysticum minutum, and then the Western trillium. Again, I couldn't fit those words in, the botanical words in, so I used the common name. But these were really fun to do. And I still am looking for a place for this series. I did sell a couple of them, but I have a lot of them now. I think they're really relevant, and I would like to find another place where I can hang them all together.
So Marge has asked, do you use photographs to remember the flower? Or you just have a 4-year degree?
Okay, I should tell you, that degree was like 2 years and it took me 4 years because I did it
Oh,
slow,
okay.
but
Thank you for that clarity. But yeah,
but it was
still.
fun to drag out. Yeah, I did use photos. In some cases, I use the actual plants. Like I have cuttings and I work from them.
Thank you.
And this is a composite of that series. There was a call for art at the Center for Urban Horticulture for a mural design, and I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. And so I put this all together, and then I thought, man, that's too ambitious. I think I didn't even apply, but because it would have been hand painted. I think something like this might work for a wrap, something wrapped or a digital image that they're going to use somewhere. I'm still looking for, thinking about where this could be used. But I have the botanical names, some of the common names, some of the pollinators. We'd add maybe a few more things to it. But that was a fun composite. So I just wanted to leave you with this one. This plant it's called the rose from the rose garden. It's called Snow Lady.
Perfect.
Found it up there. And so I just found this quote from Martin Luther. He was the 17th century German Lutheran reformer. And he said, When I'm assailed with heavy tribulations, I rush out among my pigs. And I like to think I rush out among my plants. They just give me such joy. So
Mm.
hope they do. You too.
No, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. You know, there's a lot going on in the world, and I'm so glad that you spend so much time and give so much devotion to displaying the beauty that surrounds us, because we can really get lost in the fear, in the worries. And I so appreciate the work that you do to bring us back to the natural and the nature and the beauty that surrounds us every day. We're so
Mm,
grateful. Thank you for this
thank you.
presentation and for your work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you everyone who's
Thanks,
tuned in here.
Lisa.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm
That
Deb.
was great. I
Oh,
love your
thanks.
work. I love your work. I haven't seen it all, so I mean that isn't all of it, but I just love it.
It's
We gotta get
beautiful.
together and paint.
I met Deb at a paint out. It was
Yeah.
fun. My first paint out.
So
She's a
fun.
pro.
Yeah.
Tried it
Now,
once.
Lisa, before people leave, I want to make sure that you let us know about any current upcoming shows. You mentioned
Mm. Well,
Harris
I did
Harvey
mention
coming
my
up.
upcoming show. That's in a couple months, but I have one going out on now in Mount Vernon. It's called Veiled in Light, and it's mostly about architecture. It's a lot of architectural works, and a lot of collages are in that show. So from large to really small works, and it'll be there through the end of June, June 30th. So if you do go
Okay.
up to the valley, you might want
We
to see
got
it.
we got the rest of the week. So Mount
Which
Vernon.
gallery is it?
Yeah. What gallery again?
Oh, it's called Perry and Carlson, the
Very
gallery. It's
awesome.
the main galleries up there on the main drag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great.
Huh.
Anything else on the horizon for you that we should pay attention to, and remind us, is it your website again so we can look at more?
Oh, yeah. So www.lisasnowlady.com.
Perfect.
Yeah, you'll see more there. Yeah.
Right. There it
Hope to
is.
see you
Thank you,
at
Robin.
shows. So yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you, Lisa. Thank you so
Great.
much. So great to
Sure.
see more of your work.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Okay.
inspiring us.
Take care. Thank
And
you,
thank
Thank
everybody.
everybody
you.
for coming. We'll see you again soon.